Hi, my name is Isabel, and today my presentation is going to be about the Peyton House. The Peyton House is one of the most haunted buildings on the eastern seaboard. The house has had over 24 deaths in or around it, with the spirits still remaining to haunt the home to this day. It was once featured on USA Today as one of the most haunted houses in the U.S. The house was built in 1715 and was later bought by Sir John Roldup, the only colonial Virginian to receive knighthood in 1721. He purchased the home in 1724. After his death, the home was willed to one of his sons, Peyton Roldup. Peyton Roldup was one of our 8 founding fathers and served as president of the First and Second Continental Congresses and cousin of Thomas Jefferson. The house where started with the Revolutionary War. The governor at the time of Lord de Moore made a proclamation that any slave rebellious to abandon his or her owner and aid of the British Army would gain freedom. At the end of the war, some of Roldup's slaves did so, including Mrs. Roldup's personal slave, Eve. When the war ended, the runaway slaves were returned to their owner, and as for Eve, she was treated very harshly by Mrs. Roldup and then later sold. Upon her death, she was forever separated from her son. From that day to now, the house has suffered very bad fortune. A couple of men shot each other in a quarrel. 2 young children died from a falling accident years apart, and so on. The earliest reports of ghostly activity was written by Marquis de Lafayette in 1824, stating that he had went on a grand tour through the states to speak with the veterans of the war. And while in Williamsburg, he stayed at the Peyton Roldup's house. On October 1824, Lafayette wrote about his experiences in the home. I consider myself very fortunate to lodge in a home of a great man, Peyton Roldup. Upon my arrival, as I entered the foyer, I felt a hand on my shoulder. It nudged me as if intending to keep me from entering. I quickly turned, but found no one there. The nights were not restful. Sounds and voices kept me up for most of my stay. In the 1960s, there was an overflow dorm from the students of William and Mary. A student reported that he felt light tugging on his arm when he was asleep. He thought it was just a dream. But then when he had woken, he found the bed started shaking violently. He ran out the bed just to see that nobody was there in the empty, dark room. He then shortly fled from the house. He couldn't bear to come in and not to even get his belongings. The next story is when a security guard was doing his rounds around the house. And then he found himself in the basement. The guard said he heard a loud roar. He tried to run out, but some invisible force was holding him down by his ankles. The guard desperately radios his co-workers for help. The guards arrived, found the door locked. They had to wedge it open to release the guard from the trap. The story is a warning for the guard training that this can happen all while working in the Peyton house. The most recent haunting was of an older woman who lived in the eastern part of the building. She would call security and say she would hear kids crying or playing. She then shortly died in 2000. The security heard fire alarms go off in that part of the house. No one had keys because that house had been newly acquainted, so they were forced to break through a window. When they entered the room, they found white material all over the floors and a fire extinguisher sitting in the middle of the room. The fire extinguisher material was not on any of the walls and was not covering any objects, or it was just around the room. There was no footprints on the floor and no intruders. They searched the house to find it empty. Nobody was there, so how could they explain the fire extinguisher in the middle of the room? In the 1930s, there was a report that 2 Native American bodies that nobody should touch, archaeologists said. In one of the digs, they found Native American pottery on a lot. When they kept researching and digging, they found the house was built under Native American remains. They later found out the people who built the home knew about it, and they found a tunnel that leads under the house where the Native American remains, and there was artifacts. Thank you.